Chelek Chopei, volume 25, the second Sicha for Parshas Vayishlach. This Sicha is a rashi Sicha, and it'll explain the rashi on the pasuk, on the verse, which describes how Yaakov, when he arrived in Eretz Yisrael, he immediately bought a parcel of land for 100 sitah, as we'll see in Rashi. As a quick introduction, to help us flow through the Sicha more easily, so first of all, a shekel, which is the common denomination of currency that's mentioned in the Torah. Usually everything is built around that. A shekel equals 20 ma'ah, or other places in the Torah it's called gera, as it says esrim gera hashekel. Several klali Rashi, several general rules in Rashi which apply to this Sicha. So first of all, we know that Rashi explains only anything that is of some difficulty, like an anomaly or something that's not common, something that the quote, Ben Chamishan Mikra, the 5-year-old child who is just beginning to learn Torah would need help with, would need an understanding, a clarity. Another thing in Rashi, another rule, if there are varying explanations or versions of a certain explanation on the same matter, and Rashi chooses one over the other, that in itself is very telling that, according to Rashi, is specifically what is necessary for pshutoi shel mikra, for the simple, basic meaning of the verses. You see, because Rashi himself states emphatically that all he is there for, meaning his entire objective is pshutoi shel mikra, exclusively the simple, basic meaning of the verse. Another thing, Rashi, another rule, Rashi typically does not quote the name of the author of the particular explanation. In other words, even Rashi's sources, which everything Rashi says is sourced from the Gemara, from the Medrash, typically Rashi does not quote the source, certainly does not quote the name of the sage who authored that thought. And when Rashi does so, the Rabbi says that it always contributes to and enhances the meaning, the commentary of Rashi, the explanation that Rashi gives, and one needs to just look into it to fully appreciate it. So let's go into the Sicha. In our Parsha, that is in Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Yudches, chapter 33, verse 18, it's described how when Yaakov, as he's returning home, and how he finally enters the land of Canaan, as soon as he arrived to Shechem, it says, quote, that he purchased Chelkas Hasada Ashanata Shamole, the parcel of land on which he pitched his tents. For how much? For Meya Ksita, for 100 Ksita. So Rashi, in the Dibur HaMaskil, in the heading Ksita, he explains first of all, what is Ksita? Ksita is Ma'ah. It's a small denomination of currency, biblical currency, and as I said in the introduction, 20 ma makes up 1 shekel. Then he continues and he says, Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said that when I went to the coastal cities, they would call ma'a ksita. So now Rashi is bringing his proof, it seems, to back up his explanation that ksita means ma'a, means a small denomination of coin. Then Rashi continues and he says, V'targumai, and the Targum, that is the uncle, who says, Churfan, which means good ones, sharp ones. What does that mean? And Rashi says that this means that they were toivim charifim b'chol makam, that these are coins that are good anywhere or everywhere. Like, similar to the expression that is quoted by Avrohom Avinu when he purchases the Ma'aras HaMachpelah from Ephraim, it says, Kesef Oiver lasoicha. This is money that is basically all merchants use, meaning this is something which is like internationally accepted. This is like good currency, real good currency. Now, we can appreciate why Rashi feels compelled to explain what ksita means, because this is not a common, regular word in the Torah. So it's obvious that Rashi needs to address it. But the question is, why did Rashi feel compelled to translate ksita, meaning ma'ah, that it means a small denomination of money, a currency. Because there are other mefarshim, there are other commentaries, and very significant ones. Like, for example, the Targum Yonason, that says that sitah means margolios. This means diamonds, that he paid 100 precious diamonds. And what is the connection to the word sitah? Because sitah means like an ornament. It means like a decoration, which that's what diamonds inherently are. In fact, like the Ibn Ezra, he has another source, and he says that it means little lambs, little sheep. He paid 100 sheep, which is quite expensive. Each lamb has its own value. So what compelled Rashi to explain that it means this small denomination of coins? Now, there are more questions here that could be asked. And this is specifically in accordance, like we said in the introduction, in accordance with the rules of Rashi, that Rashi himself, throughout the Torah, sets out to say this is specifically Pshutei Shamikra. So the question is, we know that typically the Torah, when it enumerates a amount of money, when it spells out a certain amount that one paid or so on, it usually uses shkalim. It usually tells us a person paid with this and this amount of shekel. In this case, where 100 manna amounts to 5 shekel, why didn't the Torah just say, in accordance with Rashi, that this is speaking about money? Well, why didn't it just say then the preferred expression of 5 shekel? Why would it say 100 ksita, 100 small coins, when it can say 5 shekel? That's one question. Another question, later in the parsha, the story when Shechem kidnaps Dinah, and it says there, Vayidaber alev hanara. He's tried to speak to her heart. He's tried to coerce her. He tried to convince her that it makes more sense to go with him. And what did he do? Rashi says, what was his tactic? What did he say? He said to her, look, re'ei kama momen bizbeis. Look how much money your father bizbeis. Bizbeis means like he spent unnecessarily, that he threw out, that he wasted. Literally means wasted, that he spent unnecessarily. And here with me, on one little piece of land, and here with me, you can get the whole, everything. Everything belongs to me. Now, according to what Rashi explained here, that it's only 100 ma, he didn't spend so much money. He didn't throw away so much money. In fact, how much is it already? It's very insignificant. Even if you count it in shekels, it's only 5 shekel. Now, another question. Rashi, it seems, didn't have to bring the whole quote. He didn't have to quote the whole story that Rabbi Akiva said, when I went to the coastal cities, there I heard that they refer to Ma'ah as Ksita. Why didn't you just say that Ma'ah means Ksita? Or Rabbi Akiva says Ma'ah means Ksita. Why is it necessary for us to know that Rabbi Akiva actually traveled there, he went there, and he found out there that this is how they refer to, this is what Ksita means? Now, another very interesting question is, when you look actually in the Gemara, you look in the source, over there in the Gemara, the version, the Girsa, is not when I went to the Krache Hayam, but rather to the coastal cities, but rather it says, Shehalachti la'Afriki, when I went to Africa, to North Africa. So the question is, it's obvious that Rashi has a source. Yes, he has a source. He's not going to make it up on his own, to tell him that it's not it's not Africa, but rather the coastal cities. But still, why would Rashi prefer to have this version, prefer to say that Rabbi Akiva went to the coastal cities, when he could have just gone with the more widely accepted version of the story? And then, of course, the obvious question, why does Rashi tell us who the author of this saying is, that it's Rabbi Akiva? Why is that important? And also, finally, what exactly does Rashi add with the words, the end of Rashi, once he explains what it means in accordance with his view of Pshutei Shemikra, why is it that Rashi adds the Targumai? And this is what the Targum says, and that it means that it's money that is kind of widely accepted and has a very good value all over anywhere. So the explanation in all of this is as follows. What compelled Rashi to explain that ksita means ma'ah, it means money, small denominations of money, and not gems or not diamonds, not little lambs or whatever it is, this is because the context of the story itself points, meaning the actual narrative points to the fact that Yaakov did not spend an exuberant amount of money for this parcel of land. What is that? Because you see, Yaakov Avinu did not buy this land as a permanent residence. He did not buy this land in order to settle on this land. Remember that Yaakov Avinu said that his ultimate goal is Vishafti Bisholem El Beis Avi. I should return in peace to the house of my father. Yaakov was on his way to Hebron to rejoin his father, his family. Yaakov did, however, get stuck on the way. We know that in Sukkot he spent 18 months, and now in this place in Shechem he spends 6 months, but it was temporary. He didn't intend to stay here for very long. So what is the reason why he did buy a parcel of land here? And notice, in this previous stop in which he got stuck 18 months, a year and a half, he did not buy the land. He just, I guess, paid rent or leased it or whatever it is, but he didn't purchase it. Here he purchased it. The answer is because here he finally arrives in Eretz Yisrael. It says Shechem, that's in Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. And because of Chavivus Haaretz, because how unique and special and his appreciation, how cherished Eretz Yisrael is. So as soon as he came there, immediately he wanted to have a part of it. He wanted to own something in it. And immediately he went and he purchased a parcel of land. But because it wasn't for his permanent residence, and it wasn't for the intent of setting up, so to speak, a permanent residence, therefore it's obvious and it's logical that he didn't pay a lot of money for it. He just paid regular market value. By contrast, let's go back to the story, let's say, of Avrohom Avinu when he purchases Maras HaMachpelah, as he himself said that he's buying it lachuzas kever. He's buying it for an everlasting inheritance, an everlasting estate of the Jewish people, in which they're going to bury their holiest and their best. So he was ready to give up all money. Money was not the object, and therefore he paid an exuberant amount of money. Now that we understand that it's obvious from the context of the story, at least in Pshuto Shemikra, that Yaakov Avinu did not spend an exuberant amount of money, an excessive amount of value on this land, now we can appreciate why Rashi felt compelled to explain that sitah doesn't mean diamonds, but rather it means ma'ah. It means small denomination of money. Because 100 diamonds would have amounted to a great value, an exuberant value of money, maybe even an excessive one. And even 100 shekel would also have been an exuberant amount of money. Now the question comes, so what's the point? Why does the Torah tell us then how much Yaakov paid? If it's obvious that Yaakov didn't pay a lot, why is it important for us to know that he paid 100 ksita? You see, by Avrohom Avinu, it's obvious that the Torah is telling us that he paid 400 silver shekel, because to emphasize how important this piece of land is, and to emphasize also how Avram did everything in his power. He went over the top just to make sure that Ephraim's ownership is totally and absolutely relinquished from that land, and now that it belongs exclusively only to us, Am Yisrael. But over here, what difference does it make if he paid this amount or that amount? And that's why Rashi tells us and emphasizes, quote, when I went to, that he tells us the story, the detail of the story, not just the punchline, that in the coastal cities they call sitah, ma'ak sitah, but rather, but he says, when I went to the coastal cities, because to emphasize that over there, they would call ma'ak kisutin. Kisutin means like ornaments or decorations, because over there is something very, very special. That actually brings out a point. You see, because they were small denominations of coins, they had a value. Apparently, in these coastal cities, they would use them to make some jewelry out of it, some various decorations or ornaments out of it that people would wear. Now, the Torah is telling us that because Yaakov Avinu loved Eretz Yisrael so much, he cherished it so much, and he wanted to express that appreciation for Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, the Torah tells us not that he paid 5 shekel. Yes, that was the total, sum total, 5 shekel. But that he paid 100 of these coins which have an ornamental value. This is to show us how this is so beautiful and so decorative in Yaakov's approach, in Yaakov's attitude towards Eretz Yisrael. And now we can appreciate why Rashi chooses this version, that it was the coastal cities and not Africa. You see, because in Africa it's very possible that these coins were considered important and called kisutin, not because of their ornamental, decorative value, which shows unimportance, but rather because it's actually a very poor populace. And therefore, perhaps these small coins meant more to them than the very big ones which they have no access to. But in Krache Hayam, in the coastal cities, where over there, these are very metropolitan cities, and they were centers of commerce. And yet, over there, where typically people would be dealing in higher denominations of currency, in shkalim, and yet over there, the ma has a special value, has a special importance because of its ornamental, decorative value, its kisutin value. This is why Rashi specifies. This is why Rashi prefers, the version that this was in Krachayim, because that proves that there's something unique, something special about this lower denomination of coin. Now, we not only appreciate why it says 100, because this shows how important it is, but also we can appreciate that why he used this specific coin and why the Torah doesn't tell us shkalim, but rather kisutin, and it calls it kisutin, doesn't even call it ma, it doesn't call it gera, to bring out this point. Now we can also appreciate the addition at the end of Rashi where he brings the Targum. Because what makes these coins so special? In other words, why are they so valuable? Why are they so decorative? Why are they so appreciated when there are larger denominations of coins and typical ones as such as shkalim? Because as it says in the Targum, because these have a value, like he says, like it's kesef over la Sicha, that it's something that it's widely accepted all over, and it has that value that it's the best currency because it is an easy currency, because it's small, and that's why it was kind of more appreciated. And now we can also appreciate and answer the question, if so, what exactly was Shechem's argument that he was trying to make to Dinah? He was saying to her that your father was kama momoin bizbeis, how much money he bizbeis, he wasted, he threw out, he unnecessarily spent. Notice something. He didn't say that he overpaid. He didn't say that he paid a lot. He said how much money did he waste. In Shechem's opinion, in Shechem's assessment of the situation, Yaakov Avinu wasted money. Doesn't matter how much. He doesn't say how much. Anytime somebody pays out money, either in an exceeding exuberance amount or when it's unnecessary, that is considered to be a bizbuz. It's a waste, right? You don't need it. If you don't need it, something that you don't need, even to pay $1 for it is already a waste of $1. Something you need and you overpay by $100, of course, is also, you just wasted more. And that's what Shechem was saying. Since Yaakov Avinu does not plan on living here permanently, since this is not where he's going to set up his residence, he's just living here temporarily. So Shechem says to Dinah, your father wasted money. Any money he spent on this place, any money that he gave out, especially that he made sure to give exactly 100 of these unique coins of this specific denomination, it's all a waste. It's all for naught. What's the point? And that is what Shechem was trying to say to Dinah. Now, there's somewhat of a question that still remains. After everything was explained, it seems so obvious, it seems so clear, that in contrast to the great wealth, the affluence of Yaakov Avinu, what is 5 shekel? What is this 100 ma? It's not even worth anything. It's almost worthless. It's so insignificant. And we're saying now, the argument we just made in this Sicha is that Yaakov was expressing his love, his appreciation, the great value of having a partner in Eretz Yisrael. If this is the case, okay, he spent he's paid with a certain type of coin to express that it has the ornamental value, the beauty that's in it. He gave 100. 100 is a full number, but still, at the end of the day, it seems to be insignificant. It's so unimportant. And then besides, what is the Torah telling this all to us for? Therefore, now we can appreciate and answer the question. That is why Rashi quotes this all in the name of Rabbi Akiva. That's why Rashi finds it necessary to tell us that it's Rabbi Akiva who said all of this. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva was most famous for, as the Gemara says, that Rogoil Zakis is Yisrael. He always did whatever possible to find a merit with the Yidden. Any time and all the time, he always found merit in everything or anything. And we see this especially in the story that the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Akiva actually traveled to the coastal cities. And there, where they had a different dialect, they have a different way of expression, and there he found out, and later he came back and he related it, that they call little children, they call them pasya. Now what does pasya mean? Pasya means like simpletons or like little fools. And he used that as a means of shining merit on young children. Which young children? So this goes after the discussion. The Gemara discusses what happens to the wicked ones, and even unfortunately to the children. And Rabbi Akiva used this to express, to point out that indeed even the children of Rishayim, of the most wicked ones, they had come to Olam Haba. Why? Because he used the pasuk that we say in Hallel, the verse we say in Hallel, Shomer Psoyim Hashem, that Hashem guards, Hashem protects the Psoyim, the simpletons or the fools. So you see from this that Rabbi Akiva didn't just come up with ideas. He actually went out of his comfort zone. And he would travel. He would go to far distances just to hear these type of things so he can bring it back and use it as a means of expressing merit, expressing schus on his fellow Yidden, even on the simplest ones. So now that we're saying that Yaakov Avinu spent 100 ma, which we explained, the ma means sitah, means his decorative coin, and he was expressing it, his chavivus for Eretz Yisrael by spending an amount of 100 and 100 sitah / ma. One would say, and again back to the question, this is so insignificant. Yaakov was such a filthy rich man. What's the big deal here? Therefore, Rashi quotes in the name of Rabbi Akiva that even so, there is a great merit in it. Rabbi Akiva saw the positive and the merititious thing in everything and anything whenever it came to another Yid. So certainly when it comes to Yaakov Avinu.